things a bit closer to home with a bit more focus on Asia. We brought together a pretty diverse panel that can give a variety of perspective on Asia's place in the football world, the football business in Asia. Let's just set the scene. I mean, the 4 Asian qualifiers for the World Cup all finished bottom of their group. No Southeast Asian team has played at a World Cup for the best part of half a century. No Southeast Asian team qualified for January's Asian Cup in Australia. So that's the scene that we set in here. We've got people that are in the football business in Asia in various guises. From nearest to me across, we have Fernando de Matos, Visa Worldwide Sponsorship Marketing for the Asia Pacific region. We have Adrian, Managing Director, Asia Pacific for Chelsea FC. We have Xavier Asensi, Managing Director for Asia Pacific for Barcelona. We have Mark Harland, Marketing Director of General Motors International. And Patrick Murphy, CEO of Catalyst Media Group. So I've come up with 5 big themes for this, and we've got 40 minutes. So big one to kick off with, value of sponsorships, as we've got buyers and sellers on the panel. I'm going to kick this one off and talk about to what extent is the value of a sports sponsorship driven by on-field success. Fernando, to kick us off, I mean, if Asia's poor performance in World Cups is a trend and Southeast Asian nations continue to not qualify for tournaments, does this reduce the value of your World Cup sponsorship, given the huge audience in Asia?
Thanks, Andy. Unfortunately, I think the Asian countries are used to seeing their teams not performing so well in the World Cup stage. This World Cup is no different. Even here in Singapore, the anti-gambling campaign picked a non-Asian team to win the World Cup. So when we see that in comparison to our results, our activation of the World Cup, we see a very different scenario. We've taken the World Cup this year to places like Bangladesh, like Mongolia, like Myanmar. We have never activated that before, so we actually don't see a direct correlation. And we also think that with the World Cup coming over a little bit closer to Asia with Russia and then Qatar, we see that coming even bigger for us.
Okay. Mark, from a General Motors, Chevrolet perspective, see if United missed the Champions League again this season, does that impact on your ability to deliver ROI on that huge shirt front deal?
Yeah, for a while there I was thinking I would have to bring 400 new jerseys with the big bright bow tie on front just to all the delegates here so we could start our own marketing program just within the conference. But no, it's actually for us, the global audience for Manchester United is growing, and it's growing in Asia. So there's about 650 million followers of Manchester United. Large percentage of them, 60%, live in our markets for GM International. So for us, it's really an excellent opportunity to grow our brand. Chevrolet in Asia is a relatively unknown brand. It's a new brand, not like North America and South America. So Manchester United, sure, we would like them to be winning and get more visibility because they have about 49 million people watching them every weekend. But quite frankly, we love the comeback story. We love what Van Gaal's doing. We love the trades, and because that's more and more coverage for us. So yes, having a winner is a good news, but for us, the growth of the game, the growth of our brand, along with Manchester United in Asia, is going to continue.
And I guess with Van Gaal's transfer activity, you can at least see where your money's going there.
Yeah.
To the clubs, to what extent does on-field success make selling and maximising your sponsorship activity in Asia? Adrian, to you with that.
Well, I think from the club point of view, the on-field success is critical here in Asia because I was born in Chelsea and Xavier was born in Barcelona, so we didn't have much choice who we supported. You've been lucky, you've had years of success, but my first 30 years as a Chelsea fan was watching pretty much a lot of rubbish. Here in Asia, the connection is much more emotional. You don't have that geographic reason. And so I think the first thing that you need to deliver for a fan is at least the chance that you're going to be competing to win. You obviously can't win the trophy every single year, but you can always be fighting to win. And so for us, on-field success is the way to build those fans. Our fan base has gone probably from about 25 million 10 years ago to around 500 million today. 10 trophies in 10 years has been a big part of driving that. So
So that would suggest that there is a direct correlation between on-field success and popularity of the club. Does that create a problem if that success doesn't continue?
No, I think the promise you have to make your fans, as Mark has alluded to in the case of United, the promise is that you're always going to be challenging to be successful. You can't guarantee you're always going to win a trophy. We didn't win a trophy last year. We hope to win some trophies this year. But what our fans know is that we will always be at the top, competing to win. As Jose is always saying, we take each match as it comes, but we always want to win every match we take part in.
And Xavier, from a Barcelona perspective, obviously a period of incredible dominance with the Guardiola era. To how much does your success here in Asia rely on the success of the team on the pitch in Spain?
Yeah, hi Andy, thank you. Well, I think as Adrian was saying, I think the success on the pitch is key, but it's not just to win and how to win. And as you were saying, I think it's very important if you can keep on winning. And as we were saying here also, it's if you're able to compete every season, I think it's very important. People want to be aligned with winners, and not just that. And we're talking on the corporate perspective. If you win, you have more impacts. If you have more impact, you have better press, etc., etc. So everything gets better and better, of course. So for us, it's very important. And of course, we are competing Champions League and La Liga, those guys in the EPL. It is key. I mean, if you don't win, you are not in the map. So on the commercial perspective too, it's key in a way that we need those partners, sponsors, and those partners, sponsors wants to be linked to the winners. Hence, the winner have more fans, potential customers, etc., etc. So for us, it's key, and not just to win, but how you win, because it is about if you are remembered. I think yesterday we were talking about Wembley 2011. It is not just lifting the trophy, a Champions League trophy in Wembley. It is how it was. So I think it's not just win, which is very important, but how you do that.
Yeah, Patrick, obviously as a commercial agent for the International Champions Cup, we recently saw 104,000 see Man United play Real Madrid in a pre-season game. What are you trying to achieve with that? Is that to deliver really the best of the best experience?
Yeah, I mean, traditionally when the clubs have gone out on their pre-season tours, they've tended to play against local sides, which has obviously worked traditionally very well in the local markets that they're playing in, and to a certain extent in the markets that they come from, because there's interest in watching the matches in those markets. What we've really tried to do is to see if we can try and get the big clubs to play against other big clubs outside of Europe, because we basically see a very big, strong demand for that. And that's basically what we're trying to do with the International Champions Cup. In terms of the connection between success and the value of sponsorships, I think there's absolutely no question that that's connected. It's very interesting to watch at the moment Manchester City and Paris Saint-Germain coming up in terms of their value to sponsors. But I would also say that I think that there are certain clubs like Manchester United that can have a year without so much success, maybe more than 1 year, and still be very successfully commercially. We've certainly saw that traditionally with Liverpool. Liverpool didn't have an awful lot of success apart from a Champions League win, but they basically continued to be very successful commercially as well. So certain clubs, certain really big clubs, I think can continue to do well, but it is possible for new clubs to come through and perform successfully too.
Okay. Second theme really is grassroots, and this is a question to sponsors and clubs alike. But I'll start with the clubs, in terms of what you do to build a lasting legacy of your football involvement in the region, in terms of grassroots education and development, and how important do you think this is in driving that long-term value and loyalty to your brand? So, Xavier, in terms of what Barcelona are doing at grassroots level here in Asia.
Correct. Well, that's very important, but you cannot pretend to be arrogant. I mean, it's very difficult for us, even in Barcelona or in Catalonia or in Spain. I mean, there's plenty of schools. So come here and try to set up schools, academies, in order to help on the local football is quite difficult. For us, it's very important. You know that our team is based on the grassroots programs. 17 out of 25 players comes through that program. So that's very important for us. How we can bring that to the Asian football, that's quite difficult. We have a school in here with 160 kids, for example, in Singapore, also in Seoul, Fukuoka, Delhi, and I mean this is very important, and you have to look for I mean, everywhere you have to scout all these players everywhere. I mean, Lionel Messi comes from Argentina, and but you know, it's quite tricky. It's not an easy thing, but it's very important. I mean, it's very important that you have those players in the first team that come from the grassroots programs, as we were listening before. I mean, the youngsters are the key, and if you educate them when they are willing to get all this information, once they get to be professionals, is something very important. So for us, it's key, but it's very difficult too.
Adrian, Chelsea have got an extensive program in the region. Do you want to share some of the details of that?
I mean, it's similar to what Xavier said. We have 10 schools across the region now, and as a club, we feel giving something back to communities is very important. But it's not to find potential first-team players. I think it's important when we set up our schools. What we want is for kids to enjoy the fantastic game of football. That's the first thing. Football came out of the community. It is a community game, and we want kids to be able to enjoy the fact that you play together. And here in Asia as well, where most of us travel around the region, you see a lot of kids with very little in their lives, unfortunately. So through our schools, we try and give something back to kids at risk, and through charities. So it's not a platform to find a future Chelsea player. I think we're 10, 15 years away from Asian players in any quantity being good enough to play in the Premier League. But it is a way to let kids play to the maximum of their potential. And for the club, it's important that we can see that emotional bond again into a community.
And what's the funding model for those schools? Who bankrolls that?
It's non-profit making for the club. So ideally, as Xavier says, it is hard. It's taken me 3 years to get 10 schools up and running. We try and find a local partner, ideally that has laid their own pitch so that we can control the quality of the facilities, but that varies by country. So here we rent up at Turf City. In other markets like Korea and Japan, we're able to have our own pitches. So the local partner provides the pitch. We find local coaches who've done their FIFA badges, and we then spend a week training them and accrediting them in how to train the Chelsea way, which sounds more glamorous than it is. What that really means is making sure they know how to work with kids, because a lot of coaches have been taught how to work with the 15 and above, whereas we want to work with 6 and up. So we accredit the coaches, we provide them with the marketing platform through our own social media, but the school makes the money. We don't make any money from the schools. It's branded as Chelsea because we think that helps to attract kids to come in. And so here in Singapore, like Barcelona, we've got about 200 kids every weekend come and play. Up in Seoul, we've got 700 every weekend. So some schools are bigger than others. If they don't make money, they're not going to keep on doing it. So we want the local school to make money, but for the club, it's completely non-profit.
Okay. Patrick, with the ICC, obviously it's a bit more difficult because you don't have a permanent base, but you go into an area for a week. Do you work with the clubs in terms of putting in place some grassroots activations to make sure it's not just like plague of locusts come through and the shirt rails are empty and away they go?
Well, the guys here will know that the contracts that we have with clubs contain clauses where there's social responsibility activities that the clubs are prepared to do. And so, yes, pretty much every market we go into, we look to do something of that nature, yeah? One comment I'd like to make about the grassroots thing and the connection back to European football. In a previous life, I sold television rights to Champions League, and I think between ourselves and the other big leagues, we were probably taking about $100 million out of most of the Asian markets in terms of television rights fees every year. Obviously, it varies market by market. So there is a huge amount of money, and I'm just talking about television rights. I'm not including sponsorship or jersey sales or anything like that. Yeah. So there is a huge amount of money that is being pulled out of these markets and being brought back to Europe. I think the broadcasters are getting very good value for that, by the way. But I think it would be good if there was a way in which some of that money could be reinvested back here in Asian football. I'm not necessarily sure that that's the responsibilities of the clubs. I think it may be something that the leagues or even the confederations need to do. The other thing is I don't think we can avoid the fact that the local Asian federations have a massive responsibility here to develop their own talent. And at the end of the day, that really requires, professionalism and a very good commercial program. So I think the federations also need to really look at what they're doing here, and basically, and also the local clubs, in trying to build something really for their own future. Because at the end of the day, they have a huge vested interest in building their own infrastructure as well.
Mark, on the...
Sorry, I just think Patrick makes a good point there, because we're forever getting asked, when's an Asian player going to be in your first team, and what does my kid need to do? And if you look at how does Barcelona, how does Chelsea, how does any top club develop their players, really from the age of 13 and up, it's about how many games do you play and what's the game infrastructure. You can provide any kid with the basic training and techniques, but from really age 13 on, they need to spend 80% of their time playing matches. And we've really struggled in nearly every country in Asia to find a good league environment for those players to be able to play enough. And it's really holding back the development of players. And as Patrick said, there's not much the clubs can do about that, right? But I think the associations could. We can help with the technical development of players. Obviously, they can use the same coaching techniques that we use at Cobham. But when they go away at the weekends, when I was 12 or 13, I was playing 4 games a weekend. Here, our school in China and our school in Korea, we struggle to find a game a month.
Yeah. Mark, from a sponsor perspective, you talk about the Chevrolet bow tie on the Man United shirt. How do you make sure that trickles down to have an impact at grassroots level here on the ground in Asia?
Yeah, I'm personally very passionate about grassroots. So growing up in Canada, ice hockey, and yes, even rugby, believe it or not, in Canada, shaped a large part of who I am today. So the lessons you learn, like many of us growing up and doing youth sports and grassroots activities, shapes those leadership skills, shapes the discipline, the conflict resolution, team. All those things that we use today were things that I learned in youth sports growing up. So I feel very strongly about giving back. So working with Manchester United, and we do it across a bunch of different meetings, but working with Manchester United in particular, just recently we took 11 kids from all over the world, China, Indonesia, South Africa, India, and made them the mascots for the opening day of the Manchester United season. I was in Joburg when one of the kids got off the plane, literally from Old Trafford, and his head was still spinning. Tiny little kid, he was about this high, 11-year-old kid called Mufanel. He was on the talk shows all over Joburg for the next week or two. We changed his life with the help of the Manchester United, our partners, changed his life forever. But not only his life, but his family, his aunts, his uncles, all the school kids that he talked to, et cetera. Those are life-changing moments, and when you see those, you go, there's such a power in that. So our median for doing that is working with Manchester United to do that in our various markets at a very local grassroots levels. We've also partnered with One World Football, so that we have these indestructible footballs that we can donate to kids, as well as uniforms, the full kit, through our dealers. So at the end of the day, it's the moms, the dads, the aunts, the uncles that are buying the Chevrolets where we're trying to grow the brand. So we need to grow strong relationships at the local level, and investing in local sports is the best way we know to grow.
Fernando, obviously at the level that your sponsorship's at with that FIFA umbrella partnership, I mean, how do you bring that Visa logo to life at grassroots level on the ground here in Asia? That was tough.
Yeah, so we're very committed to our partnership with FIFA, and that's really a strong focus for us. For the World Cup, we do a lot of CSR with the World Cup, whether that's having a bus going around the whole of China with financial literacy, financial educational messages in the World Cup, or whether that's working with all the banks in Malaysia to really get that financial education and getting people that actually participate in those activities to go to Brazil to watch the World Cup, or when we don't work with the World Cup and we work with the under-17s World Cup in UAE, it's taking thousands of kids to really experience the World Cup in their own countries. Yeah. So we do try to stick to the Visa FIFA partnership and really make it as big as possible in our markets.
Okay, let's talk now about tours. Asia. We see a lot of teams come through, pre-season. I'm sure we'll see it next year, generally on the off years of the major tournaments. there's a balancing act there between, particularly pre-season, between the off-field commercial demands and sponsors' requirements, but also the fact that, football's a big business and the coach is trying to prepare a team to go and win trophies. How do you keep everyone happy? How do you keep and most importantly, how do you keep the paying public happy that they go and see a product that bears some resemblance to the product that they see every week on the TV? Xavier, kick us off on that.
Well, that's a tricky one. There's no balance possible. From the commercial perspective, we would like to have the team for a whole month in a row here in the territory, or at least the territories that we're managing for the team. I'm so sure that Adrian is on the same page on that. There's no balance. There is no balance, actually. But I don't think either that there's direct relation between the tours or pre-season, post-season games and the final outcome of the leagues or competitions. Actually, Manchester City and Atletico de Madrid, who are the champions of EPL and La Liga, I think Manchester City went to South Africa and then to Hong Kong. Atletico de Madrid went to America for I don't know how many days. So there's no direct relation under my point of view. But of course, if you talk to the technical staff, and that's the eternal discussion that we have, they want to be, in our case, all the time in Barcelona, good weather. They want to be there, having lunch, dinner there. They don't want to travel around. But at the same time, we have to bring the team here because that's the main asset. We have our fans, and I always say that we are fans of our fans. It's amazing how people 10,000 kilometers away from Barcelona is feeling the same passion as I'm feeling for FCB. I'm from Barcelona, as Adrian was saying. We did not have much choice. I had a choice, but there was no choice. Anyway. And the thing is, you go to Jakarta, you go to here in Singapore, and any other city in Asia, and you see the fans, and it's crazy. Those people do not sleep or wake up. Actually, we were with one of our partners, which is Head & Shoulders in Jakarta. We were watching the game against Manchester City, the knockout round, the first leg. And we were there 3, 4 a.m. in the morning. To me it was okay because, I know it sounds weird and I'm feeling so fortunate, but that's kind of part of my job. But those people were about to go to work next day at 8, 9 a.m. in the morning. So that's the other point of the question, or the other part of the question. How you are able then to bring the same quality in those games, and that's really difficult because you are in the pre-season, or if you are in the post-season, some of the players might be in the national teams already. But in the pre-season, it's very difficult also to get that level that people is expecting. But I think that the fans in here is not just about the level, because they know that the Champions League or the regular league, it is where they will see the team performing, but they want to see the team. Definitely, we want to bring them, but under my point of view, there's no balance possible.
Yeah. Adrian, how do you make sure that fans get that authentic experience, or the fact that very few of them will ever get to travel to Stamford Bridge? But obviously you've got a pretty strong-minded coach there at Chelsea, I'm sure carries a lot of sway with how things go pre-season. Yeah,
as Xavier said, you can't keep everyone happy, pure and simple. We saw it from Mr. Van Gaal when he took over, that if they didn't tour at all, he'd have been happy, and frankly, Jose's the same, because he wants to focus on first game of the Premiership. But if you're going to tour, then you've got to do it properly, and the commitment has to be to bring your first team. And it is getting harder and harder, and I think Patrick's model is probably the way that we need to start looking, because every club wants to play the same cities. If you look at last summer in Asia, 3 clubs went through Bangkok in a week, 3 clubs went through Jakarta in a week. How good is it for the Indonesian fans to see us beat Indonesia 8-1? I'm not sure. Right? If we go back again next year, is that who we're going to play again? So it's a difficult balance, but as a club, as you said, that's how we try and connect and how we can give something back. We had 80,000 people turned up at the Indonesia game. They were lining the street from the minute we arrived to the minute we left. So you want to tap into that passion, and you want to help them meet the team through your commercial meet and greets and through signing sessions and what have you. But every commercial activity, every time the player's doing that, he's not training. So you've got an immediate clash. And also, I think then when you look ahead, from what I can see next summer, there's a Euro qualifier round after the Champions League final. So I think our players are going to be playing till mid-June. So, you know, then poor loves have to have 3 weeks holiday. So that takes you into July. And then they're talking about the Community Shield being something like August the 2nd. So I'm not sure when you tour. It's hard.
Patrick, is that the sort of the gap that you're trying to fill with the ICC, and that you bring in the top quality teams to play each other in a sort of controlled environment a week? There you go.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'd say I don't envy these guys at all, because they've got an incredibly difficult job, and certainly the schedule is really a big issue, and will be a big issue next year, even though it's not a Euro or World Cup here. What we see is the non-European audience, and I would include the United States, which is where we've run our first 2 competitions, and the Asian audiences. It's just becoming more and more discerning, okay? Traditionally, the teams have gone to the United States and played the Galaxy or played a local American team, and that's been very interesting. But I think as things go on, and particularly in Asia, where people are very discerning, essentially what they want to see is they want to see what they see on their televisions every weekend. They want to see, the top English clubs playing against each other. They want to see Real Madrid playing against, Chelsea. They want to see Barcelona playing against Bayern Munich. That's what they would actually like to see. So in simple terms, what we're trying to do is we're trying to deliver that for them. We're trying to create structures whereby those big clubs play against each other in the United States market and here in the Asian market as well. And it's all based, as I say, off discerning audiences. I think the audiences are maturing here, yeah? The second thing that we're trying to do is we're trying to create essentially a television product for the month of July. At the moment in the international pay TV business, there's a huge dip in June and July when the leagues and the Champions League are not on. So essentially what we're trying to do is offer something very strong to the pay TV broadcasters across the world for them to be able to promote the leagues coming back, and also to reduce churn in the month of July.
Well, your perspective on this. On one hand, you can see Patrick's bringing super clubs together to create this product. But I guess from your perspective as the main sponsor of Man United, that could be a double-edged sword, because at least if you're playing a local team, you own the party. If you're going and you're playing in a tournament with Real Madrid and Barcelona, there's a lot of noise there all of a sudden for that week for you to get cut through. I mean, which would you prefer as the sort of headline sponsor?
Yeah, it was interesting. I was back for summer vacation in North America, so I went to the big house when Real Madrid was playing Manchester, and I thought, a few people will show up. It was 110,000 people, screaming fans, people waiting to get in, people tailgating like it was an American football game. So it was kind of one of those aha moments for me. So I think, yes, we'd like to see that happening more in Asia as well, and whether it's a local team, to your point, or it's providing the fans with a really interesting, fun matchup with Manchester United versus another EPL team, I think we could probably go either way on that. For us, I think it's to these guys' point, it's to try and find that balance and be good partners. We want the guys to meet the fans. We want them to provide us with content so we can get digital content that we can share in different parts of the world. We want them to enjoy themselves. If I get Wayne Rooney just standing up like a cardboard cutout next to a car, that's doing nothing for me. But if he's engaged and having fun with some fans or doing some digital pieces for us on his time, then that works well for us. And that's something people will watch over and over again. So it's finding that partnership and yeah, keeping that at a local level as much as possible.
Okay, let's talk now about the competitive nature, competing for wallets, hearts and minds in Asia. It's getting more competitive than ever. More clubs are setting up shop here. You guys have been here already. Dortmund are opening up shop here. Man City are here, which gives more tour promoters putting on content, which gives more choice than ever for potential sponsors, but also more content competing for fans' attention and then money in an already cluttered landscape. Fernando, I'll come to you first. How do you win from your respective position amongst cutting through all of that noise to make that connection between Visa and football?
Well, again, as I said before, the focus for us is everything to do with FIFA, which is great because it gives us that focus, not just with the World Cup, but all the other FIFA tournaments. And you can argue then there's very little money to do anything else after that. And we really try to make that as big as possible. For us, a World Cup like this year started over a year ago. So the focus on the FIFA partnership gives us the focus on our investment. So there's very little to go and do other things.
But by putting all your eggs in that FIFA basket, I mean, how potentially dangerous is that if FIFA's image is, you know, with grassroots fans, you're sort of tying yourself to FIFA in that regard? Is that potentially a dangerous place to be?
Yeah, potentially, but it's still probably, arguably, together with the Olympic Games, the strongest properties in sport. And again, if you go over what's just a World Cup and all the other 20 or 30 tournaments that FIFA has around the world on a yearly basis, we're comfortable to live with that risk.
Okay. You know, and Andy, just to tie into Fernando's point, I think is for us it's the same thing. If we tried to do everything, because every local country, well, you know, we like cricket here and we want to do rugby here and we want this team or we prefer this team. If we tried to do a little bit of each one of them, then we would get nowhere. So there wouldn't be any awareness or any relationship with a brand. So much like Fernando, now that Manchester United is our ticket, right? That is our partner. We need to be really focused and really cut out all the other stuff and make sure as we go through to all the local markets in Thailand and Indonesia, China, you know, Korea, Japan, we need them all to be aligned behind that property, because if we get off, then you're right, there's opportunities to spend money on just about anything and everything.
And from the three sellers on the panel, you know, there's more people putting their hand up, me. How do you get that cut through to say Chelsea's where you should spend your money?
Well, as we heard from Mr. Lim, I think we haven't even scratched the surface, frankly. I mean, it's nice to be surrounded by big brands here, but they're not Asian brands. And we could run a sweepstake now to name any Singaporean brand that sponsors any European football club. I don't think there are any. Okay, and so if there's only 5% of Asian spend going into sponsorship, which is the figure we heard earlier, then all of us have got plenty of scope to keep finding those partners. As long as the product we're delivering is strong, then we'll find those dollars. I don't care if Dortmund want to come and open or whoever. I mean, they're all welcome, because if you're confident in your own product, you'll find the dollars to support it. And I think there's lots of Asian brands who haven't yet been brave enough to get involved in European football. But with time, they will.
I think that might be worth just mentioning, like the Man City approach, which is different from what anyone else is doing. You know, they're rather than setting up operations to sell the sponsorships to the team back in Manchester, they're actually opening clubs. You know, so they've got a team in New York coming into the MLS. They bought into Melbourne Heart, rebranded it as Melbourne City in Australia. Xavier, what's your view on that approach?
Well, my point, I mean, of course, there's plenty of competitors in the market, but it is about uniqueness, you know, and linking to the Manchester City question. I mean, of course, if you always do the same, you cannot expect something different. So I would say that in football, clubs are the ones who are able to capitalize the passion in football. Due all the respects in terms of the tournament, I mean, there's more natural, okay? There's, I would say, 3 big properties, and if you want, Manchester City wants to be there together with Chelsea in that sense. And what they're doing is something different. It's completely out of what's regular, and they try to get the results out of that, and fully respect that. But in terms of like having more competitors, is like that depends, as I said, about it depends on your uniqueness. If your product is so different than the other ones, because you do not only partner with a football team, you partner with the values and with everything it's surrounding that team. I think it's pretty interesting, and you have to leverage on that. You have to know what you're looking for, because if not, you will not understand what you end up finding, you know? So on that point, how do we leverage that? It is, I mean, nowadays, as you were saying in the very beginning, we are in a very unique period of our history in terms of FC Barcelona. So I'm not, for example, a basketball guy, but to me, Michael Jordan, it is the idol of my young ages, okay? So what I'm saying is that those brands who partnered with Michael Jordan at that time while he was playing for Chicago Bulls are still there. They keep on using the advertisements, legally or illegally, whatever. I mean, stream, YouTube, all that stuff. So where in our case, for example, FC Barcelona, now you have Lionel Messi. You know, I mean, that guy will be the greatest player of all times, I think, in terms of football. So what we are selling right now is, it's not just the football team, it's not the winning, it's not the lifting trophies, but it's to be linked with Messi, Neymar, Suarez, Iniesta, Xavi, all those kind of guys, which I'm so sure it's going to be unique. We'll look back in time and we'll say, wow, I mean, that was a heck of a team, same as the class of '92 in Manchester United, for example. So, of course, there's plenty of competitors, but there's some things who differentiate you from the rest, and I think that you have to, based on that, and have the focus on what you're looking for. It's not anything or everyone it is able to partner with. So that's also.
Patrick, from your perspective, into generating sponsorship revenue around a sort of mini tournament?
Are you asking me how much sponsorship revenue we see around it? Sorry, what was your question?
But just how easy are you finding it to raise sponsorship revenues for that tournament?
Yeah, our model is a little bit different. We're basically, what we do is we go in and we look for local promoter partners. And so far we've managed to find promoter partners in really the three biggest financial markets in Asia Pacific, Australia, China and Japan. So finding the promoters has actually been relatively straightforward, and then it's their responsibility really to go on and sell the local sponsorship. What we also do is we sell the television rights, and so the tournament that just took place in the States this summer was distributed to every country in the world. I think there were 2 exceptions. North Korea was actually one of them. And
they won it. They won it.
And they won it. So the competition actually got a comparable distribution to the Champions League or the Premier League or anything else. 80 million cumulative viewers. The Champions League is about 100 million cumulative viewers per week. So very successful from that point of view. I think from Catalyst's point of view, we have kind of 2 strategies in this market. One of them is a very strong belief in premium European football, and that's really what trying to bring the International Champions Cup out to Asia is all about. But we also really believe in local football. And actually, if you look at the data from places like Malaysia and Indonesia, you'll see that actually the cumulative audiences for the local leagues, in Indonesia, for example, it's 2.5 times the size of the Premier League. So even though the Premier League is fantastically popular in Indonesia, the local league is still generating 2.5 times the levels of audiences. And if you look at the qualitative data, the levels of interest and awareness, the local leagues are actually still stronger, okay? So there is, in our opinion, enormous opportunities to build local football in Asia Pacific. I don't think that there's any conflict between premium European football and local Asian football. I think there's a place for both. And certainly Catalyst is very bullish on the potential for both, and we're looking to work in both areas.
Okay. Last question. Would be a conservative estimate. There's probably easily $1 billion worth of football money on this panel, as in money that's either spent or sold, or but very little of it resides in Asia. You know, European clubs, FIFA, Manchester. You know, so do you believe that your activities are taking money out of Asian football, that if you guys weren't doing what you're doing, that would flow down into domestic leagues, domestic clubs, and how much of it is actually dripping down into development of Asian football? And I guess at the end of the day, the question is, do you really care? You know, Fernando.
Good question. Of course I care, but again, I need to remind you of our focus with FIFA, and we're hoping as global partners of FIFA that some of the money we spend in becoming partners really trickles down to other parts of the world than just the World Cup, and to development of football, for example, in India, and similar situations like that. So it's a little bit indirect, and yes, we do care because this is where we have our business, this is where we're trying to grow our business, but it's a more indirect contribution.
Adrian, you know, when you're out selling your sponsorships, do you find that you're selling against the local product, or does it not really register?
Never,
right.
Frankly. It might be strong and it might be attractive to some locals, but no. I'm competing against other opportunities for those marketing directors, whether it's a TV commercial, whether it's a straight promotion. It's not even against other clubs quite often. Sometimes it is, but usually you're just fighting for those marketing dollars. As Fernando said, we too want to see Asian football grow and be strong, but it's not our responsibility as an English club to make Asian football as strong as it could possibly be. There are plenty of very strong federations and associations that are fighting hard to do that. We want to make sure that kids love the game, enjoy the game, and in that way grow fans for everyone.
Xavier, do you share that sentiment or experience?
Absolutely, and it's I think that the European clubs cannot and do not have to carry that burden. I mean, it's like local football is local federations and local leagues, and completely share the same view of Adrian in here. We are not competing with the local teams in that sense, even though they might have these massive audiences in here. But even though I think that the local leagues are very important in terms of having that love for the game, because it's not just an aspirational, that this is linked to the grassroots and the quality of football. You know, if you don't have a strong league, your aspiration is to go to Europe and play football. That's quite difficult. So it is a tricky one. But no, we are not. I don't feel that we are competing with the local leagues or local teams.
Mark, from your perspective as a sponsor, you know, is the driver of your relationship with football Manchester United? If that deal wasn't in place, would you look to sponsor local football? So is that sponsorship being pulled away?
Yeah, no, the local sponsorship, local activation is paramount to us. That is the core of why we're doing football in Asia. So whether it's at a country level, let's say Thailand, and working together with other sponsors who may be here, right? Non-automotive, of course, but working with other sponsors to put on 5-on-5 tournaments, 3-on-3 tournaments, to develop young children, men and women, boys and girls, into professional. That's important to us. And then at the local level, like I said earlier, it's our dealers who represent the Chevrolet brand in the local communities of Thailand and Indonesia and China, et cetera. So we need to encourage them because they have marketing dollars, right? We need to encourage them and partner with them in many times in a co-op to invest with the local football leagues, to invest in the local schools, to refurbish the local fields, because that's building a long relationship, a long-term relationship. So we're in with Manchester and football for the long term. It's not just we're here for a few months and we're going to be pulling out. We're here to invest in the brand over the long term. So that investment in the local community by the local dealer as well as us is paramount to our strategy.
Final word, Patrick. I know Adrian spoke to you, going to play a local Indonesian team and steamrolling them, and you're sort of filling that gap by, okay, we're just going to bring 4 fantastic teams for you to watch. There is still that danger that that's alienating those local fans, because for those Indonesian fans, watching their team get beat 8-0 might have been the pinnacle of their fandom of their local team. And also from a playing perspective and a club's perspective, that aspirational, taking away that aspiration to play touring teams. I mean, how does that sit with you?
Well, I mean, actually, the model that we apply is that we wouldn't look to take all 3, 4, 5 games from a club if they came out to play in Asia. We would make them an offer. We would make them offers based on them playing a couple of games against other big clubs, but that then leaves them room to play against local sides. And I mean, the clubs would need to comment on whether that's a model that works for them or not. But that's how we would address it. They don't have to play all the games against other big sides, you know. I think, just going back to the local football again, I think at the end of the day the ratings are there and the research is there to support it. What's not there at the moment are kind of proper professional commercial platforms. I mean, these guys are offering extremely good, well thought through and very well delivered commercial opportunities to sponsors in places like Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand. Unfortunately, the local leagues aren't doing that right now. And I think that if they can do that, then there's a great opportunity to see growth. And I don't think that the growth will, you know, it's not going to hurt the clubs or anything like that. I think there's potential there for everybody.
Okay, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and thank my panel for their insights. We managed to do football in 63 minutes and 43 seconds. So I think we've just eaten into the coffee break, so apologies for that. But we'll all be outside, so if there's any other points that you want to pick up with any of the panellists, myself, or again, thanks to Darren for the keynote, then please come and grab us over a coffee. Thank you very much.